Preparing to live stream.
YouTube.
Oh, it's being
Oh,
live streamed,
streaming.
it says.
It's going.
There it is.
Wow. This is a throwback.
The boys are back in town and Mary Kate.
Is there any reason Yep. Wow, we're on YouTube.
You're
Oh, baby.
All right, there we go.
From-
Wow.
right? How many?
It's
Cheers.
crazy.
Wear your mask, everybody.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. We're doing it.
No
Do
less
you guys
than
want this link?
people with masks on in the street.
Do you guys want the link?
Sure.
I'm all
I got
right.
it right. I got it right here. I'm watching
gosh.
us on my phone while we're
You guys gonna text your other group chats?
So meta.
So meta. Oh my gosh.
No,
Wow.
she's Zoom.
All right.
Hold on.
So who's gonna lead us in prayer today?
Yeah,
We
who
have
is gonna lead us in prayer?
all
Well, we have 3 priests, so I don't feel like it should be me.
right.
Wow.
For it,
Why
guys.
not Mary Kate?
Wow, none of you are gonna step up. Are you serious right
I was
now?
expecting Dan to step up.
Dan looks like he's looking for something in his phone right now.
I'm sharing the link to all my people.
Oh my
She's
God.
looking in the Roman ritual for
I'm trying to find
starting a podcast.
yes. I'm trying to find that. What was the name of that podcast site that I used? The cheapskates who don't want to pay for Spotify.
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Podcast thing. All right, I'll lead us in prayer.
Okay, thank you.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, thank you for the gift of this day and for the gift of this friendship. We are grateful for this time that we can spend together with each other and with you in your presence. Thank you for the gift of our vocations and for the gift of all the ministry that we have been able to perform by your constant care. So please bless our conversation. This may be a time of great joy and of great peace, and that we may grow in wisdom, knowledge, and love. And we ask all of this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
I'll go back to the footage to see if Dan's any better at praying now that he's an actual priest.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Highly doubtful.
No lights still around, so we're good.
So I feel like we need to do like a recap. Someone needs to actually give a summary of what this is. How did this come to be podcast?
Whose idea?
This was-
2020, it was ordained by the gods that a group of seminarians and lay people should come together and not be bored during COVID. That's what happened. Let's not be bored during COVID. So
Yeah, I mean, really, we just all kept arguing on Slack for a while, and we figured
Slack. Oh my gosh.
everyone else should hear our arguments.
Cringe.
Yeah.
And they have.
And they have, because we've posted them
So maybe
and streamed them live.
did we decide what the last official podcast was? Like when was it? Did we say 2022? When was it? I feel like we
Will and I were dating, so it was like fall of 2022,
I think it was
2021. I don't know. No, we got married in 2022.
Been a few years. It's been a few years for sure.
Yeah.
I know I bowed out like after I got engaged, and that was 2021.
I don't think we went
Yeah.
on that much longer than that though, right?
Yeah,
we
so
didn't.
fall of
Maybe 2 episodes
fall
or
of 20
something. So
August 17th, 2021, gird your loins. That was the last
Oh
episode.
wow.
What was the last one?
gird your loins.
Oh my gosh.
We're almost exactly 3 years out. That's cool.
Not much has changed in 3 years, you know.
So
don't
let's
think
do
so.
a John, I can tell you're itching. Let's do a life update. Go ahead. You start.
Well, as I had just mentioned, and I bowed out shortly after I got engaged in 2021, and thankfully that went through. I got married in December of 21. I had my first child in November of 22. Had my second child in June of this year. So been busy. I also started nurse practitioner school in the meantime. And I am now working in the neonatal ICU. So it's been
Nice.
an eventful 3 years.
I see you too.
It was how did Mary feel, your wife Mary, about killing the podcast? Like she really was the first death blow. Did she like come to terms with that, or like how's that going?
Well,
How
you
did
know,
that go?
it was one of the stipulations for the engagement.
Yeah, we
You know,
figured.
of course she said yes. She said
I thought it was
TCI must end.
part of the dowry.
Yeah. Acceptable terms. I think it was an acceptable sacrifice.
Yeah. But it's been an eventful 3 years. God has blessed us immensely, and I'm very, very joyful to be where I am now in this life.
Cool.
Mary Kate, what about you?
Oh, we're gonna jump to the next
Oh,
to
we're
me
gonna jump.
now.
Popcorn, Mary Kate.
All right. I also am married now and have one child, another on the way. So we found out the gender this week. I was going to tell you guys, but now I can't because we're live streaming and Will's family still doesn't know what.
You can wink
Um,
to us.
Yeah.
so no, people can see me winking. So yeah, so we're excited. I was just making gender reveal cupcakes for we're going to see his family this weekend. Yeah, so I left my full-time job in May, so I'm home full-time now. Which gives me a lot of time to do things like run defunct podcasts and um
Ouch.
just kidding. And yeah, I am still with Illinois Right to Life, but I'm president of the board now, which is a volunteer role. Um, and yeah, just, doing the thing. Popcorn, Tim.
Mr. Tim.
Yo, yo. Oh, since August 17th, 2021, I was ordained a deacon on May 13th, 2023. And I was ordained a priest just a little over 2 months ago, May 18th, 2024. Been a priest for a little over 2 months, baby priest, right out of the box. The warranty's still good. They can still recall me if they want to. And I've been at my
Is that
parish,
true?
St. Paul VI. I hope not. But
I was gonna say, can they change their mind at this point? I feel like the deed is done.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, the deed is
Consummate
done.
must.
It's my
You have
my
an
soul
indelible
is
mark on your
indelibly
soul
marked.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a priest in the line of Melchizedek, and they can't take it away. So yeah, I guess so. Warranty's
That's
done.
so dope.
But
That's
I've
so
been at my
dope.
parish, St. Paul VI, in Riverside, North Riverside, and Lyons. So it's the general area, and it's my first month there. So loving the priest life, doing the sacraments, and doing priesty things. So
Tim, do you know what mass you're saying not this weekend, but next weekend?
yes, you
We've
want to
been
know?
talking about coming to mass and we haven't. We're in Brookfield, so we're close.
Yeah, absolutely. Next weekend. So not August 4th, right?
Right, the following weekend, the following Sunday.
Oh yeah. So I got the 4 p.m. at St. Mary's, and then I have
Cool.
the 11 a.m. at Mater Christi. Just two.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
And
Confessions
everyone's
at 3
invited to
o'clock.
that.
Good to know.
Listening wants to
Mental
go
note.
to that mass. You're welcome.
Yeah.
In
Come on
Riverside.
over. Hear me chant.
Cool.
You know.
All right, now you get to popcorn someone.
Popcorn Zach.
Ah. Oh. Hi. Well, I haven't gotten married, nor have I been ordained. And no children either. So
Well, I mean,
not been-
that's good, I suppose.
but it has been
Start with that.
an event-filled few years. Man, so since August 2021, it's wild. But I think probably the most significant thing was last summer. I took a sabbatical from work, took 6 months off, and did a 5-month internship at a regenerative farm out in Virginia, called Polyface Farm. It's like pretty famously known from a couple documentaries and books, things like that. So had the opportunity to basically work on a regenerative farm, which is something that I've always wanted to do, just to get the skill set and to keep learning in that direction. So yeah, that was a really awesome experience. We got our butts kicked. It's basically, it's kind of like regenerative farming boot camp. So we were doing most of the labor, sun before the sun even rose, all the way to sundown every day. I was with 10 other people from across the United States, from Florida to Massachusetts to Idaho. So got to meet a lot of really good people, made some pretty solid friendships that are still ongoing. We're about to have a reunion in about a month too.
And the
So,
WhatsApp videos were truly out of this world.
oh yeah. Yeah, there's some pretty good footage from being out there in Virginia, where the farm
Yeah.
is in the
Yeah.
Shenandoah River Valley. So it's
Pretty wild.
actually where John Denver was singing that song about. The
Oh,
Western,
really?
not West
Not
Virginia.
West Virginia, yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, it's an important distinction
Oh.
to make. If you're from the western part of Virginia, you don't ever want to say you're from West Virginia. It's just one
Yeah.
of those. But
What are you doing,
so,
Kevin?
that's what I was wondering.
It's
So
a little
yeah,
bright in here, so I gotta put my clips
That's-
glasses on.
Are we coming to you in
What?
3D right now?
Are we coming to you in
All right.
3D right
well,
now?
now we have to pop
You
up.
actually, you really can't see through. These are my eclipse glasses. You really can't see through these things. It is effective. All right. Anyway,
What's
This is
the
a
point?
do my best.
regenerative.
You see the eclipse.
What is it? Regenerative? Is that what it was?
Regenerative agriculture. So the concept being that instead of lots of inputs, you graze cattle just on grass, which is what they're meant to eat, and
And then the chickens eat the poop, and so on and so forth.
he's not
Got
far
it.
off. He's not far off.
Got it.
so with your skills and now Mary Kate being a stay-at-home trad wife, you guys could really start something up. Like,
It's
you'd really
true.
get a farm going.
Yeah, get Zach over here to make me a
homestead.
compost pile in my
You have
backyard.
three chaplains. You can come over, and I mean,
Yeah.
You need
We can
some
make
poop
this-
for the chickens to eat.
did TCI the first
Ew.
podcast to ever go from podcasting to full-time farming in
This is a
suburban
regenerative
Chicago.
podcast.
Do you know for sure that that would be a first? I feel like that would be a good podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. The
Like,
first Catholic podcast. I mean, we can,
concept.
we'll couch it. We'll make ourselves unique. Who knows?
There is a blessing for the harvest too. So
Yeah.
There is.
Do some Ember days.
Yep.
There's also
Um,
a mass for the harvest too.
oh,
There is.
wow.
There you go.
Or
Who's
any of you
next?
guys' parish do anything with Ember Days?
No. No, that's a long way off. Someday maybe. No, we're not.
Chicago makes
We're not
sense.
tratty enough.
I know.
Oh, I'm just
I don't even
talking.
know. I don't even know if St. John can't just. I don't even know if they do Ember days. I'm actually. I don't know.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
I'm talking in terms of agriculture. Like guys.
I'm next to Midway Airport. What? I mean, there's no agriculture here.
Right. Exactly. I'm just saying it
So
doesn't
go farm in the jet fumes. Those contrails just raining
Like
down the
llamas
good
going up
chemicals.
all
Actually, not well, there is like urban farming over that way on that side of 55.
Is it really? Oh, maybe
I
I'll
got
find it.
is.
my
Yep.
backyard. No,
I don't know like how it was like a relatively new venture the last time I heard, but I think it was a bunch of Catholics that started it actually. So
Probably could have been.
yeah.
It's a big thing in the evangelical Christian world too. I mean, like the guy who runs the farm out there, Joel Salatin, he's very staunch evangelical Christian, and everybody else for the most part that I interned with from all over the country, they're all Christian of some stripe generally. So I was the only practicing Catholic, so that made it interesting for sure.
That makes it super interesting.
Lots of
That
good,
is.
lots of good conversations.
Cool.
We do officially have live viewers. Faithful fan of the faithful son of the podcast, Derek, Tim's friend
I
Derek
knew.
is watching.
Derek,
I was about to say, shout out to Derek, our most faithful viewer.
shout out to Derek.
Is there
Oh my gosh.
anyone from South Carolina, like Kevin, where you and I
Oh my
met
gosh.
our
Still
views on the West
ridiculous.
Coast?
I'm just waiting for Sadie to show up, you know?
Oh, it's,
Oh gosh.
all right, popcorn and Kevin here.
There we go.
All right. Yeah, so since August 2021. All right. So like Tim, I was ordained a deacon in 2022, in May 2022 at Mundelein. And then I spent the full year as a deacon, then got ordained a priest on May 20th of 2023. And am assigned, I'm down on the southwest side, previously mentioned, right by Midway Airport, a merged parish. When they told me where I was going, I'm like, great. I had no idea. So the parishes that merge together, which is now called Two Holy Martyrs, because they're both martyrs. That makes sense. So Saint Symphosa, who definitely existed in the early church. Did she do the things that she said she did? Who knows? She was martyred for the church, so that's good. We love her for that. And then Saint Rene Goupil is the other one, who's one of the North American martyrs. So right on the edge, we're right officially in Chicago, right on the edge, clearing neighborhood. It's a place that no one comes. No one should come except to come to visit me. There's nothing here. Midway Airport's here.
I hope your pastor's not listening to this.
No, he would agree with that. He would agree with that. It's a great place. It's a great residential area. If you want to come live here, come live here.
Oh gosh.
It's not a good place to come visit, unfortunately, you know. But the church is very nice. Great people.
You
Love
can
it here.
see,
I'm not far from Tim. I'm like 15 minutes from Tim. And thus like 15 minutes from Mary Kate. Sorry, I don't want to dox
Yeah.
Mary Kate where you live. And then
I think I already said actually.
yeah.
There's a zoo there.
So.
Way more interesting.
Zach's giving out my personal address.
Well, you said where you live already, so
Yeah, I think I did. That was a mistake.
888 North.
Not long after we moved here, I stumbled upon a website that for whatever reason literally had our address listed on it. And I was like, that feels not safe.
like in relation to you.
Yeah. And so I had
Ooh.
Google, I challenged it with Google and I was like, I filed a report or whatever. And I mean, kudos to Google. They removed it within 24 hours, but there was my home address when you Google my name right there.
That's fun.
Very bizarre. Yeah. Anyways.
TCI website.
No.
All complaints.
There did used to be a TCI website.
Mm-hmm.
All these things were costing me money, you guys. So
Now that it's back, we can
the well went dry.
When the funds start streaming back in, which they obviously will.
Yeah.
When the
We're trying to
funds start
monetize.
streaming back in.
I guess most importantly, I should say one thing I did do in that time is 2 weeks ago, I baptized John's new baby.
That's true.
Nope.
Now Dan baptized the other one, so there's now
The
a
other one.
direct competition to see which one turns out holier.
Father Kevin doesn't even know the other one's name. He's just like, there's Jack and the other one.
I don't want to name your children on this podcast if you don't want to.
Just
I know
share
the
their
names.
address.
That's fair.
Sally and
Share their
Steve.
address.
I was thinking about like drawing little stick figures and saying this is what they look like. I'm not comfortable with showing my children's images, but you can get the gist.
Well, the big thing now is you on social media, you put the star, you put a smiley face over your kid's face. So you can't
I hate that.
let them know.
Just don't
Especially
then. It's
especially in
like,
the big
just
influence
don't.
accounts. I know it is weird.
Point. This is my baby's body.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
that's
we
what
They
I
question-
definitely exist. They definitely exist. They are
Yeah.
mine.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. We're wondering if that's actually your children or if you're just holding a random child.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
All right, Dan, go for it.
Or else-
What have you been doing? What's your life like?
So Father Kevin and I were ordained together. This was a little over a year ago. It has truly been like just blissful. It's been amazing. In the course of a year, I know when I first started at the parish, I'm down in the south suburbs and Orland Hills, which is right next to Orland Park, at St. Elizabeth Seton. it's this time last year there was like nothing to do, and in the course of 1 year, like there's a lot going on over here, and just been able to take on a lot of different things, which has been just invigorating. And yeah, I couldn't recommend this enough to all of our listeners who might be discerning. All one of them.
Definitely expanded his vocabulary.
All one of them.
All one of them.
Doesn't Derek have like 5 kids?
He has 3.
Oh, okay.
So I think he's set in his vocation at this point, I would assume. Yeah.
So
Surely his
yep,
children are watching.
everything's
One
good.
of them, are they all girls?
No, 2 girls, and they just had the youngest, Joseph.
Nice. That's awesome.
Quick question. So, Father Dan, Father Kevin, you guys were both in northern suburb parishes. Do they try to like put you different places for your assignments, or it
North
just
suburban. North suburban.
more suburban?
It's like there's a board and there's a placement board that puts you places. We have no idea how they work. Surely places that had openings, but I don't think there's any sort of you should go to the south side because you were on the north side. There's no like rhyme or reason that we know of.
Interesting.
I guess Father Michael didn't move too far, so that makes
Right.
sense. Yeah. Shout out to Father Michael. He let Father Kevin baptize my youngest child. Open the parish.
He's
doors.
gonna if we would have to pay him
what's her
probably $10,000 to watch this podcast right now. There's no chance. Yeah, maybe it might be.
Are we
maybe
talking
more.
about Mike Maringer?
We are.
Every time I walk into St. Mary of the Angels, I chuckle that his photo is still
Is it still there?
hanging
Oh,
on
God.
the
It's still there.
bulletin board. That it's like, please pray for our seminarian. I'm like, I feel like he was the seminarian here like 6 years ago. It was like a long time ago. I think it was during COVID, wasn't it?
Put a big star on his face.
Yeah,
Exactly. This is our
that's
child.
super funny.
John and Mary Kate both married at St. Mary of the Angels.
Yeah, actually, I
Yeah.
just have to comment. Dan was really talking up his vocation, and while you were talking, I was thinking I didn't do any of that. I just said, yeah, I'm married now. So it's good. It's
Well,
all good. I'm just really
to our
tired.
credit, MK, I don't think it's very hidden. The joys of the priesthood might be harder for lay people to see, single lay people to see, whereas I think the joys of marriage are pretty self-evident. So
I agree. I will say though, like, I feel like the attitude around marriage, particularly people in our parents' generation, is kind of this like, we've been together forever. This is just like part of my life now, like kind of a joyless. So
Mm.
that's obviously not you and me. Like I would still consider us to be newlyweds, not to each other, but just like, to our spouses. But I do feel like there is this attitude of, I don't know, marriage is what it is. And then you die.
something to do, and then yeah. I don't know. Mary and I joke that we're still in the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
Obviously every day is different, but I do
Yeah.
think that it's true. So I don't know when that's gonna end, but marriage.
Yeah. Totally. Cool. Any other updates we want to give before we move on?
Zach has a very nice mustache.
That's true.
This is probably I've been working on this puppy for
3 years. Closer.
couple.
So
There we go.
Oh, geez.
Father Bim is beardless. That's good.
Yeah, I got rid of the beard. It was a partly a shaving accident. So I was trimming my beard, and I
Oh,
accidentally
no.
had it on the lowest setting. I'm like, oh crap! So I got to take it all off. But it was also one of those things that a couple of people told me like, dude, your beard doesn't look good. Just get rid of it. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
dang.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was not one of those people.
Brutal.
I support all beards.
Wow.
I got to see
No,
Father
it's
Dan
all-
grow a beard in the Holy Land. It did happen.
Like,
Beard is a very generous term, but yes,
It was
something
it
like
was
that.
it was better than some of it was better than some of our classmates.
like a
Yeah, we can admit that.
man.
I think it looked less creepy than others.
Correct.
That's funny.
So I'm gonna pivot us. I don't know if you guys looked at what I put together in terms of questions. I know we floated a couple different things in the chat that we wanted to talk about. I think regardless of the direction we go in it, a good segue is lots of chaos in the world these days. The US elections are just an absolute circus as usual. A lot of controversies within the church seem to be cropping up here and there, as I guess again as usual. The conflicts in the Holy Land, conflicts in Ukraine, obviously. How do you all feel
But no more
yourselves?
COVID.
Yeah, but
That's
no
right.
more COVID.
We did it.
Wow, we did it. We outlasted
Good job, everyone.
COVID.
The only people with COVID are those who test for it.
That's true.
Actually,
Which has
that's
been
funny. I
true
was
for
just
4
about to say,
years.
well, there is still COVID because Joe Biden has COVID, apparently, right?
Well, yeah,
No,
yeah,
Joe
he did.
Biden is dead. We know this.
Yeah,
This is what we can talk
Speaking
about.
of-
Joe Biden is not actually he's not alive anymore.
that's my favorite conspiracy so far. Not because I want anyone to be dead, but the conspiracy that Joe Biden has been dead for weeks now is
And people are
just
wearing Joe Biden masks. That's wonderful.
There are-
weekend at Joe's. There's just people pulling strings.
Yep.
there are YouTube videos of side-by-side comparisons of different shots of Joe Biden where it's like this one's the real one, this one isn't because like his earlobe's not attached in this one, and it's pretty chaotic.
We forgot the
So-
button.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No,
What'd you say?
It was nothing meaningful. Go ahead, please continue.
So I don't know what you guys want me to say to that. How do you feel yourselves being impacted by the chaos? Are you impacted by these conspiracy theories, Dan?
Only for entertainment purposes. Other than that, which is what conspiracies are for.
Well, so actually, for real though, like you guys know on Instagram, I am pretty outspoken about a lot of this stuff. People have been blowing me up with conspiracy theories. And I used to entertain that stuff like a couple of years ago. I mean, we did an episode on conspiracy theories, I feel like,
Did, yeah.
for the prior election. And I'm just like, I don't know, I have very little patience for it nowadays. So do you guys like what's your take? Like how do you find yourselves responding to this stuff? Because it's just like the same nonsense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the easiest thing is to disregard it. I don't know. Conspiracies, I think you can count on one hand the number of times that people have been organized enough to pull off anything like this. I mean, can you imagine if
Are we talking about Joe Biden being dead?
Yeah.
Okay.
like can you imagine the number of people that would have to be buttoned up and just like on 24/7 to not let something slip?
That's
Like-
exactly what Will says. He's like, can you do you know how many people would have to keep this secret for this to be true?
Yeah.
Which is actually, I've heard people make that case for the existence of Christ, that do you know how many people would have to keep up this lie for this to be, So anyway, point being, yeah, I agree with you, John.
Will's one of them.
Will is
one
very
of the
anti-conspiracy theories.
oh, I was gonna say Will's one of the Joe Biden impersonators. That's
Yeah,
why he can't tell you what he
No.
does.
I have a different take on it. So you guys know me. I love a good conspiracy theory for sure. And I think that there can be I am not talking in any fashion about the Joe Biden being dead thing. I haven't looked or read about that. And honestly,
So he's still undecided, is what he's saying.
I'm not going to look into it, to be honest with you.
Jury's still out.
You could talk about a plethora of other issues, though. I think, when it gets down to it, there are very interesting things throughout history that you end up finding out in retrospect, are ultimately different than how they played out in real time, or at least the information that we have now. But regardless, I think the answer to your question essentially is whether or not you entertain these sorts of things, it should not disturb your inner peace. Like that's the way I am with it now. I've gone through some pretty boom and bust cycles of following this sort of stuff. And lately, I mean, I have deleted finally all church news except for the Pillar. Thanks, Kev, because that's a good one. The Pillar's the only church news I read anymore. I even got rid of Catholic Vote. They bother me to no end. Just everything's so political and not even really based on Catholicism. It's just kind of charades of what everybody thinks your version of Catholicism should be. So anyway, I'm rambling, but my response to that, like the response to the chaos, conspiracy, whatever it might be, anything could be going on, but we as Christians, like our duty is always to focus on our day-to-day life. Like that's one of the beautiful things about being Catholic is, up until probably about 100 years ago, nobody even knew who the Pope was throughout the world, probably for a vast majority of, Catholic history. We know our mission set in front of us by Holy Mother Church. And we follow our day-to-day life. And, there's always going to be highs and lows. Like the world's going to be crumbling around us. I'm sure, 2024 is not over yet. Like I'm really sure that the rest of this year is going to be even more insane. I would not be surprised in the slightest, even just in the past couple of months. But at the end of the day, it really shouldn't matter,
Well, a lot of what you're saying just reminds me. So, my wife and Father Dan are members of the work, and it's a lot. And Zach's a cooperator.
Dan, I didn't know that. Is that new?
With them before, yeah.
As of like a year and a half ago.
Oh wow.
I didn't know
Nice.
that.
I had no idea.
Yes, him and Father Mike.
Can you show us your brand?
But anyway, all I'm saying in regards,
you're not albino. That was a Da Vinci Code reference.
but
Oh, I haven't read that book.
call to holiness in
Speaking
your
of conspiracy theories.
oh, geez,
At least you're reading another book.
It was not the right one to bring up, but
Sorry, John. Keep going.
The call to holiness within your particular vocation is just something that Saint Jose Maria has talked about. And the work continues that everyone has their particular call to holiness. So I think that's kind of what Zach was getting at is, you live within, like, we should be aware of, and we've talked about this years ago, right? But we should be aware of what's going on in the world, obviously, but also acknowledge what we can impact. And what I can impact most is my children, my family, and then my close friends.
Yeah, and it's also, to be clear too, is not to be construed with a lack of drive politically. Like, yeah, we are, in good conscience as Catholics, as Christians, we are called to participate in the public life, in the public sphere, and we do have a duty to act in all those areas. But we don't have a duty to know everything that's going on in the world, nor does anybody, quite frankly.
The 24-hour news cycle disaster for the human psyche.
Yep.
So actually, I have a clarifying question for everyone, because I think it's important to distinguish between what we are referring to as conspiracy theories and like actual misinformation that we are forced as citizens of this country and citizens of the world to discern what to do with, I guess. Like, this is a super controversial example, but I'm putting it out there because it's the first one that comes to mind, is like the vaccine issue, for example. So obviously that was super relevant during COVID because the vaccine was a big deal. I think it opened a lot of people's eyes to just questions that we should be asking about what we're putting in our bodies in general. So regardless whether it's vaccines, seed oils, etc., a lot of people would say that's all conspiratorial. None of that is real. And then you have others I would put myself in this camp that are like, no, there's actually science that points in that, oh, the chat, that points in that direction, you know? So like, how do we decipher between a conspiracy theory like Joe Biden died in Vegas while he was there for an event, and they are now putting stand-ins at events where he's supposed to be? How do we decide, how do we differentiate between a story like that and something that we are being told that we know to believe or believe for whatever reason is false?
I
Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, sorry, dude. I honestly I don't know. Um, I mean, recently I've become, I guess I've become as dismissive of like of news in general. Honestly, even Catholic news, than I ever have before. Which is it. I used to be frustrated by that, but now I'm just like, you know what? This is just kind of the world we live in. So there's a website that I use that like it puts headlines from like every one of like the major news networks like right next to each other, just so that on the same issue you just see all the different headlines there are. And that's the only way nowadays that I know like what's going on in the world. um because like I just like I can't use like a single site. Like Father Kevin knows that one of the things I do, not only to learn about what's going on in the Catholic world, but also sometimes just to, get his reaction to things, is um I will read articles on National Catholic Reporter, just like what the headlines are, and just see like what those are, and then I'll go over to Life Site and I'll read like those. It's like two vastly different ends of the spectrum, neither of which I really feel like I can take seriously. Um, but I feel like I'm only doing that just to know what's going on in the world. Like I don't really read news. So I guess what I'm trying to say with all this is I guess I just kind of want to know what's going on, and I get that more or less from like seeing both sides because I have it all on one page, but I don't know. Like I have no idea how to decipher what's going on, like what's factually true, like in the minutia or not.
Or even just what's worthy of your attention, right? Like not even what's actually true, but like, you how many ever years ago you would have been labeled a conspiracy theorist for saying that there were any side effects to the COVID vaccine, and now those people are being vindicated, right? So it's just like, even if you're pro-vaccine, which I got it, and I worked with COVID patients and whatnot, but it's just the idea that what is labeled a conspiracy theory just depends on who's doing the labeling.
Yeah, that's totally true. I do
Yeah, I
feel
think
like people use that term when they want to dismiss a particular, not in all cases, obviously in some cases it's worthy of being used, but I do think sometimes it's weaponized
Oh, it's
to belittle people who are questioning
very
things. Sorry,
often.
Kevin, what were you going to say?
honestly, I think it's comes down to like is it being used to push an agenda? Like as potentially hilarious and devastating as it would be to find out our president has been wearing a mask, like he's been like, that benefits like no one. There's no agenda. Like who does that help? Or like or the Trump's assassination was an inside job, or the attempt was an inside job, or like things like that. Is it being used to push an agenda, or just kind of like just this crazy idea? Whereas like a lot of the COVID stuff and uh, was used to push agendas, or um, some of a lot of the gaslighting stuff. It's just used to push an agenda, and it could be from either side, right? This is not accusing one side or the other, but is it that could be a way to barometer to say like, oh, is this actually something we need to be aware of, or is it just kind of like just something sort of, as Dan said, it's just something that kind of entertains you. Like, you're just kind of like watching, like, I can't believe this is the world we're in, but here we are.
Can I
Yeah.
just say it's kind of interesting that we're all sort of referring back to COVID as though it was just this giant made up, yeah,
Well,
conspiracy,
right, it
which is
wasn't made
funny
up.
because
Well,
remember, well, correct. COVID was real, it existed, but like I think we all, correct me if I'm wrong, do we all agree that this was
The
like,
the social effect and I mean, especially living in
yeah,
Chicago.
was intentional?
I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I mean, even the I mean, people now, I think it's now the thing of like, oh yeah, even things that that Supreme Leader Fauci are saying, like it's, yeah, this thing was a little overblown. It just it escalated. It got out of our thing. I mean, and now people can sort of talk about it because we have the distance, and right, it shifted. And there's, I mean, with that, there's been a lot of, I use the term gaslighting again, because certain groups are like, oh yeah, we never actually said that. And then one of the greatest inventions, like Elon Musk taking over Twitter, has been a negative, a large negative for the site. But one thing that, I don't know if it was him or his team introduced, was crowd notes. Is anyone on Twitter on this? If I'm the only one.
No, I'm
But
actually shocked to hear you say that.
What's
so
Twitter?
God,
Well,
so
yeah, first of all, call it by its
X,
name.
X.com, right?
it's not.
But
The
they have
name
this thing.
sucks. The name sucks.
Oh, totally.
We can all agree the name is bad.
But it was very interesting because he created something where, like, it's called, I can't maybe the actual term is called, it's called like crowd notes, where basically people can like put underneath it any sort of anyone's tweet that it, like, hey, here's some context for this thing. So like it basically is used to call out like obvious lies, or like, here we go, here's readers added context that they thought people should know, and actually has been very helpful to like call, like, hey, this is what you're trying to push, and it's not going to work because here's some crowd notes to say. And it's just people coming together. It's almost like a wiki style thing where
Interesting.
it's
That's the same thing as like,
lagging.
where you go on YouTube and this sort of stuff, regardless of what your views are on, but like you go on YouTube now and you watch a video that even mentions abortion, or that even mentions, something about, same sex, whatever, like, and there's automatically one of those, what do they call them? Like the informational disclaimers tagged under the video. Giving a dictionary term of what this or that sort of thing is, like that automatically for me makes me just
so on Twitter,
kind of roll my eyes.
and Twitter is crowdsourced, so it's like, someone says, back in 2020, I never pushed school closures, and then people come together and say, actually, here's the evidence that you did,
Okay.
and then it gets voted on, and enough people vote on it, then it gets put. So it's crowdsourced. It's not.
Okay.
It's not anything that
Yeah,
Twitter.
but Zach, I'm totally in agreement with what you're referring to. Like when Facebook comes down from on high to tell people that something's false, it's like, first of all, I don't actually care what Facebook thinks about whether this is true or not. And second of all, I disagree. That's
It's
side
information
issue.
censoring, and especially
Yeah.
coming from a lot of these big tech companies. Again, like
100%.
whichever area of the spectrum you fall on, as far as, your political views, beliefs, all that sort of stuff. I mean, a lot of these corporations got busted for, tampering with election data and, all
Yeah.
sorts of other falsified information. So, I mean,
Well, and to go back, I think the reason we bring COVID up is, at least for me, it was the first time in my lifetime where I can see, I think, a lot of well-intentioned people, some not so well-intentioned, but were pushing information that they didn't quite believe because they wanted a result. And so it was people saying that the vaccine was 100% safe, or that COVID was more dangerous than it potentially was. I think a lot of those people had good intentions at heart and just pushed things too far. But now we're able to look back and we're able to see that there was a lot of misinformation that was passed through official channels that makes us now question everything that we see. And that was the first large scale thing like that I can remember. I don't know if any of you
Do
remember.
you think, because question for everyone, like, so I agree with that because I think looking back at COVID is seeing like, it's hard for me to see anything right now on any news site from any source and not question the data, question where they got the story, why they're trying to, like, it's just, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, or it's just a thing of, we're now questioning everything because there was so much skewed or misinformation, or for only from one side. And so you're like, well, I don't know if this is lying. And so it's kind of, for me, it's just been like, well, I almost mistrust everything. This extends into the Catholic news world. I think they don't sponsor us, but the Pillar is probably the only one that like I do like trust right now.
Yeah. The Pillar is like the only legit journalism that I have in my purview at the
I
moment.
think
like
I would agree with
church and
that.
otherwise.
But like, it's, what do we like? Is this like, how have you guys now since COVID, or since this, this kind of period of, now where everything's like, how have you dealt with, sourcing your stuff? I know Dan mentioned, okay, I'm just gonna bring everything together, see what's all out there, and compare it. So much are saying, well, I'm just gonna see this one that I trust, and um, it's the one that seems the most neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
just
know,
interesting thought.
Mr. Tim.
So going back to Mary Kate's question, so like that seems to be like a balancing of the scales type of approach to it, that you look at one side, you look at the other side, you just kind of like gauge it. I was gonna say there's also something about like intuition, like something about our gut feeling about
totally.
like, does this like seem plausible?
Yeah.
Um, and as long as things can be kept as an idea, and like no actual kind of like facts come out about it, that's kind of like maybe like a dangerous kind of area to be, is where it's just stuck in the idea. But then as like things start to come about, as things come to be known, that's how you can verify it. Um, I'm not really big into conspiracy theories, but also going along the line of current events. September 7th, I was obsessed with that for a long time. Every single day, I'd watch these updates about what's going on with Israel and Gaza, and I got into, not that I like Dan, like not that I like got like uh, agreed with it, but I started getting into these channels. They're talking about conspiracy theories about how it was an inside job from the Israelis in order to like gain the land or whatever. But like ultimately nothing came to fruition. It just stuck around as an idea, and there's no like who did this and what and who did. And so there's like an intuition that's like, okay, and there's nothing coming out about this, and so like I can kind of disregard it.
Yeah.
But
One thing I think, whether it was COVID or anything else, that would have rebuilt my trust in like the so-called experts is if someone had acknowledged that they were wrong about their misinformation. See, I feel like we're so used to misinformation. Like one of the two sides when something happens is wrong, but as time goes on, that the side that was wrong doesn't acknowledge that. Like during COVID, we would be having an entirely different conversation if Fauci or the CDC or whatever had said, you know what, on this, and this, we were wrong. But no one nowadays, especially institutionally, acknowledges that they do something wrong. And if they do, it's like in very like, ways that they can't get, they can't.
They're afraid of getting sued.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I feel like the CDC and some of these other organizations that previously had, like all of us hanging by their every word when there was a global health crisis, I feel like they will never recover the trust that they had, that they abused. Nor will some of these major figures, like Fauci certainly is one of them. And then, I think, so again, I'm not intentionally doing this. This is just the example that's in my mind. So someone who's been extremely critical of Fauci, and I think the fact that people feel this animosity toward Fauci now because he did lie and he did abuse that power. I think it's kind of pushed people into his arms is Robert Kennedy. And Robert Kennedy is, kind of known for being anti-vax and whatever else. And it's just interesting how there's been such a shift in something that was so what's the word I'm looking for? Something that was like, I mean, oh my gosh, if you affiliated with someone like Robert Kennedy 5 or 6 years ago, you're a nut job. You're a nut job. Now this guy is like actually kind of a legitimate candidate for president. Granted, he's like an independent, but still it's just amazing how things have changed. And I think again, it points to this fact of like, okay, clearly there was truth to what he was saying, whether it was the criticisms of Fauci or something else. And now people see that. So like I do think maybe to Tim's point, and this is how the Holy Spirit works in the church, right? Like something comes out. I mean, like Marian doctrine, a lot of Marian doctrine is like this, like there's a story or something that just sustains itself for so long over time that the church just has come to accept it because we just believe that the Holy Spirit's present in longevity. And I think like some of these truths, we've just come to accept them because it's just kind of like, it's just so clear now, like when we were in it with COVID, we couldn't see clearly who was lying and who was telling the truth. But now in retrospect, it's just so clear where we were being manipulated and where we were being taken advantage of. And it's just, I think it presents like a real predicament for a lot of Catholics, because then when you're in it real time, you're asking yourself these questions of like, how do I discern so that I don't find myself in this COVID situation again, where I'm being abused and taken advantage of because I'm desperate for answers and trying to, grasping an information. And maybe that's part of it too, is like, maybe that's the problem, is the grasping. Like maybe we need to just accept that, Zach, to go back to what you said initially, like a lot of this information just doesn't belong to us. And we have to be okay with just like trusting God and saying, you know what, I don't know. I will tell you as a parent, like I will tell you the vaccine issue is really tough and COVID made it harder. And I do think that like there is very much like a real element of, you know what, to a certain degree, you have to say like, I make a decision for my kid and then I just trust that God's going to do what he's going to do. And I think that that's true for a lot of things in parenthood. I think it's true for a lot of things in life. And I definitely think it's true for like discerning some of these world issues that ultimately we have no ownership of that information.
Well
That was a
said.
long tangent, but
No, I'm 100% with you. And I think that there's an interesting corollary actually, even within the church, because, now more than ever, maybe not more than ever, but now we have access to global information. So within the church,
totally.
In the realm of contentious apparitions, or maybe not even contentious, but just, everybody loves prophecies. Everybody loves information. Everybody loves
Yep.
somebody from on high comes down every week and tells you, oh, here's a new message. This is what's going to happen next. I'm not going to say anything in particular, but
I know exactly what you're referring
well,
to.
but
No.
no. There's several, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because
Wait, who are we referring to?
I'll text you.
prophecy.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is. It's
Oh.
in the chat.
Okay.
Regardless, though, even without specifying, just it's this desire for us. We always want to just we always want information now because we think we're going to feel better when we know the truth or when we know something, like as people, we just have this insatiable desire for knowledge. I mean, and that's why gossip's such a thing, right? We always just want
Totally.
that we know or that we want to be true.
But even aside from gossip, like I think kind of what you're getting at is people don't want to take responsibility for their own actions. So if it's an apparition, if it's a CDC, if it's a swine Z, someone that tells you this is what you need to do. Now I don't have to make any choices. It's easy because I can follow this, higher power. And if something else tells me to do something that's wrong, it's not my fault.
I mean, that's as old as, that's every pagan religion that's ever existed. Like it's, I'll have the gods explain it. This is, it's the fates are against me. This is a very old, we're describing a very extremely old tendency of humanity. And I think it's always where Christianity's kind of tried to like insert itself or draw like, hey, like, okay, yeah, so God is in control, right? That's abundantly clear, but free will is a thing. Here's what God, here's the thing that God's going to do. You can either accept that or reject that, right? You can choose to receive, or you can choose to try to do your own thing. But when you try to do your own thing, you're oftentimes stepping back into like that paganism, because you're putting it into the hands of sports or politics or science, and you're always trying to give your license to someone else, as John said, just to, I don't want to have to deal with this. It'd be better if someone else had responsibility, so I can't be blamed. Or, this is all terrible. It really is, the amount of people that have come to me that I read this Exorcist, I read this guy online, and usually these guys aren't like, they're not grifters, they're not trying to like take advantage of people, but hey, if I was going face to face with demons on a regular basis, like, I mean, I'd be wary, and I'd see a lot of that influence other places. But sometimes it's like, okay, when we blow that up and we try to make it okay, that's the explanation for everything, and now you have all these people that are on edge, like, oh well, now demons are potentially going to control this and tempt me and do this, and it causes people to lose hope and turn back to that paganism. No, Taylor Swift is not a demon, Jonathan. Unbelievable.
I feel like
I will
he was
not. I
baiting me
will.
with that
I
one.
will not. I will not accept Taylor Swift.
Hold her back. Hold her back.
So,
Yeah, you.
so going off of what you're saying, Kevin, I want to know, like, obviously within appropriate levels of sharing, like the priests specifically, how do you see all of this impacting like the people in your parishes, for example?
For
Or
the
like,
most part.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Finish your question.
No, I was gonna say, or like outside of that, like people that we know, how do we see people that we know being impacted by conspiracy theories or like too much news, grasping at information, an unhealthy curiosity, like all of those things? Do you guys hear people confess that in the confessional? I feel like that's like very rampant. Sorry, I don't know if you can say that, but I just feel like
in
that's
general,
very,
yeah, I don't know. It's like you'll hear every time there's like I was reading this, and it's usually some exorcist or something with the bishops or the pope or something like that. But it's really not very common that I've seen in my parish. It's people are living their lives. They're not super concerned. I get very few questions about politics, about what should we think about this? What should we think about that? And so I don't even bring it up. Like I keep things close to the chest. I mean, if someone's going to ask me about it, I'll have an answer for them. Absolutely. But you see I feel priests sometimes feel pressured, like, okay, this thing, for example, the Olympics, the opening ceremonies, right? The supposed parody.
yeah, that's
Seemed like a pretty obvious parody of
apparently not so obvious. I got into an argument on Facebook.
Oh no, it's
about
and it's all
with
good, and it's
a
everyone's
priest
saw
from
that,
my
yeah.
diocese.
Yeah. So anyway, like for that example, okay, so that happens. We're obviously going into this period in the church of we're in this Eucharistic revival. We're about to hear John 6 for the next 5 weeks, about the Eucharistic discourse of Jesus.
Thanks,
And so I think there's a lot of priests are like, well, I should mention something about this thing that probably everyone saw. I didn't mention it at all. No one spoke to me after mass about it. No one questioned me. No one's like, well, what do you think about, this? And there might have been one guy, like my sacristan or something like that, mentioned something. I'm like, oh yeah, it was pretty crazy, right? So it's one of those things where like, people need the gospel. I'm going to focus it there. I'm not one for bringing in current events into my homilies or into really any discussion and focus on somewhere. Now I'll use pop culture. I'll use, things like that. I'll bring those things in.
Taylor
But like
Swift?
current
Yeah,
events,
any day of the week.
is, I don't know. I feel you're just inviting people to be like, well, maybe I should think about that. And how do you want to kind of want to do? I feel like the path we're trying to say is like, it's something that we should kind of ignore or be aware as much as you can be without putting your soul in danger. So I get very little questions about it, and I also prompt for it very little.
Yeah.
The readings
I-
from Jeremiah are spicy enough. I don't need to be inserting
Yeah,
more and more drama. so.
underwear and violence in the city.
Yeah, Jeremiah's loincloth. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. And I guess it is a good thing at heart that we are shocked by the things that we see currently. Okay, so like the Olympics, for example, and not even to delve into it too much, but I mean, are you really that surprised that that's the kind of
No,
stuff has been going on for, I mean, like, it's just been a little bit more veiled in the past, but are we really surprised that
totally. That was my response. And I'm like, am I apathetic? Like maybe that's the other bad, like other
No.
end of this spectrum, you know?
you can't help but be sometimes. I mean, like, I think again, okay, so as an example, this thing, since it's currently happening and we're talking about the subject of chaos, like, okay, how does it affect us? Does it affect you? Does it disturb your peace? If it disturbs your peace, I mean, and then maybe we probably should anyway, but pray for reparation, like
Yeah.
pray for the people's souls involved. Like, we don't have to go into the ins and outs of whether or not it was blasphemous or, a mockery sort of thing. I think it's pretty self-evident. But in regards to anything like that that's going on right now, if it really truly disturbs your peace, number one, I think you need to analyze why, like if this stuff is really causing you that much disruption in your daily life, you're probably way too involved in your social media or in the daily news cycle and probably absent somewhere else in your life, and I'll be one of the people to admit that I'm guilty of that plenty.
I'm totally guilty of it. Yeah.
But so number two, if it is causing you, a lot of disruption in your life, I mean, what are you going to do? You pray, search for why it's bothering you so much. If it's not, an inordinate reason, but what else can you do? I mean, I'm not saying it's not something where if it was a local situation and you had the opportunity to act politically or something, yeah, sure, do that 100%. Like, I'm not advocating inaction or apathy whatsoever, but my point is we get so destroyed by this stuff so regularly now, and that's one of the tactics of the evil one too. Saint Ignatius of Loyola today, get some.
Right.
But discernment of spirits 101, test this stuff. And if it's coming from, if you're way too focused in the future, that's not right. If you're way too focused in the past, that's not right either. Like, God isn't present here right now. Like, where do you need to be right now? And that's with Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's good you say that though, because I've had a lot of luck for few people I've met with. Sorry, my voice is starting to go out cold, but that Ignatian spirituality has made some inroads to those people who are like worried about the exorcist. Like this person said this about this specific vision that they had, and that Ignatian spirituality specifically has helped to kind of recenter, whether it's the examine prayer, whether it's discernment of spirits, the rules.
It's interesting.
Yeah, and it's appropriate. We're recording on his feast day. But yeah, I don't know what it is, because it is so focused on, noticing things in the here and now, right? It recenters us. And this is not to elevate Ignatian spirituality over any other one. I think there's multiple ones that could do the same thing, but that it is going back to this battle tested thing. I mean, it's been around for 500 years.
Yeah.
So, let's do that instead of the flavor of the month, visionary who's saying, everyone except for 10 people are going to hell.
I think that there's I think it was Father Mike Schmitz who said at the National Eucharistic Congress last week that like the opposite of love is not hate, the opposite of love is indifference. And I in my homily this past weekend, in the wake of the Olympics opening ceremony, just like the parody on the Last Supper, as I said, you know, we're all used in the world right now, we're all used to people responding to things like this with complaining and demanding apologies and just being angry. But
Outrage.
you have the choice to not be offended by what people say or do to you. Like that is completely up to you. You can be a victim to what people say to you, or you can look at what happened in France, and that is clear evidence of indifference. You know, if the Eucharist mattered, then there wouldn't be parodies of it. If we had a culture that was focused on our Lord Jesus Christ, then that kind of thing wouldn't be happening. And so I think the proper response to those kinds of things is not like anger and complaining, because there's plenty of that right now. It's we have to recognize there's just indifference in the world when it comes to this, and we can do something about that. Like we can be invigorated without being jerks. And I think that's how we can properly respond to things like that.
Certainly, I would say not be jerks, but is there not a place for like righteous anger about things that mock
Yeah,
us, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the fine line that I struggle with personally, is like, when is anger righteous and productive versus when is it just me wallowing and trying to get mad about whatever is happening this week, because next week it'll be something else. So how do I stop myself from just being angry for anger's sake and turning that anger into something productive?
Yeah,
If
that's a really good question. Because I think it's possible to be like internally motivated by like frustration. I've just never really been one, especially recently. I don't know how effective it is when people like respond on social media to things that happen that are not good. Personally, like I said, I'm not really on social media, so I really don't care. But I think if I'm gonna express a strong emotion, especially anger, I'm not gonna do it over social media, even if it's righteous and if it's in response to something truly unjust. I
The
just,
section
yeah,
is the gateway to hell, basically.
you hear that, Derek? Don't comment on this video.
Unless you're saying nice things, but frankly, how often does that happen? You know, I mean, really, it is one of the most abominable things in the world.
I mean, the comment section is bad. I agree. I will say, I mean, and I'll give like a real life example of something that I've personally been struggling with the last few weeks is how enthusiastically all of these pro-life and Catholic organizations have rallied around JD Vance and Trump after they've so intentionally separated themselves from us in the last few weeks. I mean, to a degree that it's offensive, that they have just cast us aside. Trump pretty much said, yeah, pro-lifers, I did what you wanted me to do before. Let's move on. Like his son, so his daughter-in-law is now the chairperson of the Republican National Committee. His son was quoted saying that abortion and traditional marriage didn't need to be in the Republican platform because it's a spot on the wall in the basement relative to like the other issues that are equivalent to like the roof leaking in the house. And so you hear these things as a Catholic, and to have I have personally been angry. Like I'm angry that Catholic organizations and pro-life organizations are ignoring that this is what they're saying because they want to keep that line of communication if he does end up in the White House in a few months. And I have asked myself that question, like to your point, Zach, about like, I mean, a couple things. I have a following on Instagram. I do feel, and I'm part of a pro-life organization that has some reach. I do feel an obligation to respond to some of this stuff occasionally, not all of it, but some of it I do feel obligated. I have struggled with like, am I the one in the wrong here? I mean, I am the minority. Like I am the strong minority here. People, my DMs have been hot garbage the last few weeks. And, like Zach, to your earlier point, like it has totally affected me mentally. Like there were a few days I was like, I just have to get off of my phone because this is like bringing me to a dark place. But I'm very angry about it. And I don't know if that's just, I feel, what I know it's just, I mean, I'm like, my response is, okay, I need to go back to the basics and I need to rediscern how we are all supposed to discern how to vote. Like, so I went back to the very basics. I looked at like, okay, what has Cardinal, oh my gosh, is it Cardinal Burke? Um, it's not Cardinal Burke. Oh my gosh. He used to be the top
Or
guy at like the
Cardinal
Catholic
Mueller?
Supreme Court.
no,
No.
not,
I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
We
A
can talk
big,
about League.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
No,
different. Another conspiracy theory.
please no.
No, one of these cardinals, he had some really strong statements that were really like this, like Catholics can't avoid voting
Oh, you're
for
talking
these
about
issues.
Bishop Strickland.
It wasn't Strickland, but that's okay. I'm pretty sure it's not Cardinal Burke. No, it is Cardinal. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The point is, I went back to the basics and I'm like rediscerning how are we supposed to like decide who we vote for? Or, like, is it wrong to vote for the lesser evil? One person accused me of consequentialism. I'm just like, I don't know. Is it consequentialism? I don't know. Like, I think that these issues get very muddy for people. And like, yeah, to your point, John, when are we allowed to be angry? I think that's like a really hard, I don't know if, I mean, people in general are just poorly catechized. I don't know if Catholics are well catechized in how to identify anger that is just in themselves versus how to identify anger that is a distraction or a vice. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, I
I,
don't know the answer to that question.
I think we're so dismissive of anger nowadays because we've only seen anger weaponized in horrible ways. And I mean, like St. Paul says, if you are angry, let it be without sin. Like an emotional response is okay. But
Mhm.
I just think that we have such a hard, not that it would be easy to be able to distinguish it otherwise, but I just think we've gotten to this intuition of like, I see anger leads to instant bad decisions and ignore anything that sounds angry, and that's it.
Yeah, that's fair. I like
It's
that
like
from St. Peter.
commoditizes anger and makes it into like entertainment, right? And
Totally.
it's like
Yep.
it's no longer the human one-on-one interaction. We're like, oh my, this person's like not upset with me. It's like they love it. We love it. And there must be some type of like research on like the dopamine effects of like not just like anger, but even just like our phones and entertainment in general
Totally.
to distract us and lead us to oh, Dan said it, it's an I word. From the Eucharistic Congress, shoot, never
Indifference.
mind. Indifference, yes. Makes us indifference to the world that we live in. And yeah.
I mean, I think it's totally just to be angry about that, Mary Kate, for sure. I mean, I would agree with a lot of the things you said. We've talked about it too. And it's your work. Your work is the pro-life movement, but and when you see that having, apparently been used as a tool for votes and to, sway a crowd. I mean, yeah, that's really horrible. So I think it's totally 100% just for you to be angry about that. It's just a matter of, discerning in this situation. Okay, well, what do you do with that then? And for how long?
How do you guys personally discern, or like, do you have any like, snippets of wisdom for discerning how to vote?
I vote straight Republican.
This is really becoming an episode on chaos.
That is such a bad answer to this question. John's joking.
Some of those Republicans,
Actually, you probably do vote straight Republican, but I trust that if there was a bad Republican on the ticket, you wouldn't vote for them.
I've undergone a change in my mentality towards this. So I used to be very much of the mentality that it's a regrettable situation, but in the United States, you have to vote for one of the two parties because it is a worthless, useless vote if you don't. And that's where I was like, like COVID era and before.
Yeah.
But I think as I've grown in my faith and as I've become more intentional on making sure that who I vote for, I want them to align as close as possible
Yep.
to my Catholic to the Catholic truth. I've realized that there are and have been candidates of parties people have probably never heard of that are more in line with Catholic teaching
Yep.
than Democrats and Republicans,
Yep.
especially presidential candidates.
Yep.
So I have now become not a proponent of a specific party, but a proponent of even just the fact that find out. And I think I found a website where like you can answer tons of questions and it'll tell you like literally everybody, like who do you align with the most? And it's like, oh, okay, like this is good for me to know because that helps me
Yeah.
get off the party loyalty.
Yeah.
So where is the line? Sorry. Well, I'll let you guys finish and then
No,
I
I
have
was
a
just
follow-up question.
we're a
Go
people
ahead.
of it. As much as I agree too with the mentality that we are called to act rightly and justly, according to our values, 100%. But I think we also probably it could be an American phenomenon as well. Like we think, this whole idea that we need to work so hard to make everything happen. Like we're also a people of conscience too, and to Dan's point, if there's a candidate who is truly running for office, and yeah, he's not going to secure the votes that he needs, but if his morality aligns with yours way more closely, then 100%, there's nothing wrong with voting for that person. I mean, the whole idea of you're throwing away your vote for somebody who isn't going to win, and this greater of two evils is going to triumph as a result. I don't think your conscience is far more important than some sort of than whatever outcome is potential, I would say.
So talk to me about the line between prudence and consequentialism, because I think that as Catholics, we're supposed to reject consequentialism, but on the flip side of that, I think that their prudence accounts for the consequences, like prudence requires that we consider what the consequences are to our actions. And so I think with regards to voting, like I would agree with you guys. I am moving in a direction of I would rather know that who I'm voting for truly aligns with what I believe than give my vote to someone that frankly I'm uncomfortable with half of what they have to say, but I've been told it's the lesser of two evils. I agree with that. There are a lot of people who think that's horrible. I mean, like most Catholics out there, and here, like fun fact, Catholics are like the number one predictor of who's going to win an election. If you look American history, every single candidate that the Catholics voted for is the candidate who ultimately won that election. Every single one. And so I think like this is really important because us as a body, as like a body of people, we have power in these elections. If we got every Catholic on board with voting for a third party, that would change our electoral system. I mean, obviously that hasn't happened, and I think that that's a tall order. But anyway, point being, what's the line there between prudence and consequentialism? Like, how do we make that determination of, am I being prudent by giving my vote to Donald Trump? Or am I acting in consequentialism when I should actually be voting for someone who's more closely aligned to me?
I'm with that. I mean, for me, it's become completely a conscience thing. And when it comes to the presidential election, specifically, I think maybe it's a bit of a selfish approach. Because I'm like, I'm gonna vote for the guy who or the girl who I think is most moral because I know which way the Illinois Electoral College is going to go every single time.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
my vote in Illinois, in presidential wise, has no effect, at least right now.
Yep, that's fair.
And so that relieves some burden, I guess. I mean, like, well, I can vote for whoever I want, and so on my conscience, I'm good. And so I think it's right. The third party that's out there, it almost like they almost seem like too good to be true, right? The American Solidarity Party. It's like it's almost
Mhm.
like it's basically like
Yeah.
It's basically like the Catholic,
Mhm.
the moderate Catholic. Here it is. Everything we
Mhm.
believe, everything we agree with. I mean, it's like I was like, okay, is this integralism? I don't even know what how you'd say it, what it is,
Mhm.
but it's almost like, it's like was this made for us? It's hard to tell. But like that just seems like for me like the easy thing of like, okay, I can go there. Like that, I agree with what they have to say. Like, I mean, the last dude, Brian Carroll, I think his name was, looked like a total goober. I mean, he looked like a complete nerd. And I can't even remember the name of the guy is for this cycle. Um, but that's my approach is just it's like and this was before COVID. This is long standing. Like I've never felt like I'm throwing away my vote. I've yeah I need to do like I can't. Um, I'm just gonna vote for who I think is gonna best lead the country, which right now is if the last three elections has not been in either of the guys or girls from the majority parties.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think even in states like California or, on the left or, Wyoming on the right. I mean, just because those states haven't changed sides anytime recently, over time, if there's enough interest in other parties, people are going to think twice, at least think about maybe I can vote for someone else, even if that candidate this year only gets 1%, 2%. I mean, like over time, you can
Mhm.
undo. I mean, it's hard, right? It's really, really hard because of all the money and the super PACs and all that. But if people really all were like, we don't have to vote for one of these two, even
Mhm.
if that's what we've been doing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, again, I mean, that's between you and God if you vote your conscience. I mean, it's not somebody else's position to say that you squandered your vote because you didn't vote for who was apparently going to be the lesser of two evils, And
Mhm.
I've heard arguments from clergy to the contrary, like the whole lesser of two evils thing is, it's a sad fact, but you do need to vote for, the realistic candidate who's going to be the lesser of two evils.
Mhm.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I might not have all the theological underpinnings of it, but I know that again, like Kevin said, we're in the frustrating position of living in Illinois, and not only Illinois, but Chicagoland, where, yeah, we're
Yeah.
surrounded by, I mean, we're in one of the most liberal, at least socially liberal areas in the nation, and possibly even,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
we see the results walking around every single day of the way that this area votes. I mean,
100%.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Our mayor's having panic attacks because he just can't hack it. It's
Yeah.
just horrifying.
I don't blame him. I wouldn't be able to hack it in that position either.
Yeah,
You know?
but why can't we elect someone who can handle it? Like,
Oh, I know.
it's painful to me. I don't get it. I'm with you though. I totally agree. Side note, I just looked up the American Solidarity Party's website and they are not on the ballot in Illinois this year. So we don't get to vote for
Are you
them.
serious?
Yep. According to,
Oh my
unless their website's
gosh.
not updated.
Uncle JB, you are the worst.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You
Well,
still write him in though, Peter Sonsky.
Yeah.
Is that not how it works? I don't even
I
know.
don't know. They have a map and the map is like 3 colors. It's listed on the ballot, write-in status, and then working to get on the ballot. And Illinois is working to get on the ballot. So doesn't say write-in status. So I don't even know if we can write them in. I mean, I feel
I
like you
mean,
can write anybody in, can't you?
Dan's earlier point, it's an interesting point when you mention the concept of everybody, trying to convince you to vote for, the candidate that's going to win, who is more closely aligned to our political values. It has the opposite effect, like you mentioned, Dan. Really, to your point, we're always going to have this, bogus, busted two-party system. And part of it is the fact that we are Catholics too. Like, there has not been a Catholic interest represented in the White House.
Yeah.
Probably almost ever.
There's only been one Catholic president, and it was Kennedy, and we all know he was not a true Catholic in the values sense. I mean,
situation.
Yeah, and obviously, like, even like behaviorally, like, I get that, right? Like, I mean, like, there's no perfect candidate, because the only one you can really vote for and feel 100% confident about that is God, right? So
yeah.
Can I write in God on the ballot?
I don't know. I'm sure it happens.
Yeah.
Tim,
I
go.
was going to say, our number one viewer, Derek, he shared with me a week or two ago some quotes from Teddy Roosevelt. Now, he's not Catholic, but he could have been like a hidden trad Catholic. Like, this guy was awesome. Some of these things, these remarks to this like women's group were like, whoa, dude, this is so maybe
okay, that's fair.
A small Catholic interest, but who knows?
I read,
interesting.
Side note, I read his biography, and it mentions that the Roosevelt family was really well traveled when they were young, and young Teddy Roosevelt met whoever the Pope was at the time. I can't remember who it would have been, late 1800s, but he met him as a boy, and I guess he said as a kid, he's like, I'm not impressed.
That's funny.
I stand corrected then. So
who was Pope at that time? Wait, did you just say? Sorry.
Like Leo the 13th or sometime
Leo
around
13th.
I don't know.
Pius the 9th. Pio Nono.
Yeah.
Teddy.
I don't know.
Teddy was, young during that time. I don't know. I can't do the math on it, but
yeah,
we'll try.
I was going to bring up an extreme example about choosing between lesser of two evils, and this in no way is indicative of our current politics and policies. But after World War II, people asked people who cooperated with the Nazi Party, like, why didn't you stand up for democracy? And they said, and I think it's probably kind of true in their minds in some sense, that like that was not what we were given. We were given a choice between communism and National Socialism.
Yeah.
And we chose National Socialism because it's better than communism. And I mean, they could have fought harder, certainly, but I think there's something to be said about that thought about, like, we believe that we were doing the right thing or the best thing given the circumstances. And it's like, but you still cooperated with grave evil. So
that was actually something that someone who follows me on Instagram said in response to all of this about JD Vance and Trump. His comment was, Winston Churchill said he would side with the devil if it meant, if that's what he needed to do to effectively oppose communism. And I get that, but like, do you hear yourself? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
you use someone else as an example,
No,
Yeah, really.
yeah.
I would side with, can you not say Satan?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh gosh, I just don't know.
Yeah.
If the world hates you, remember that it hated me first.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's really ultimately, I think, our position as Catholics, unfortunately. Like, and again, by no means also am I saying that we should not. Yeah, like, it could very well be the answer for you to vote for the lesser of two evils. I'm not saying that that's an incorrect position. I'm just saying for myself, I can understand with your concern, Mary Kate, and anybody else whose voice concerned. I mean, because I'm trending that way too. Like, I've been more and more let down, because the reality is, the more you get into this stuff, it's just like, gosh, we are out of 300 million people. This is the dog and pony we have,
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the general direction things are headed in is just incredibly bleak.
Yeah, it
By
is.
the way, there is legitimate, like, when it comes to things like foreign policy, for example, like, there isn't necessarily always like, what's the Catholic view on this? I mean, like, there is legitimate ability to be like, okay, like, there's no clear, like, as long as you're not doing these things, like,
Right.
you know, it, not that it's necessarily a question of like interventionist versus non-interventionist, but like, what should foreign policy look like towards Israel? What should it look like towards Uzbekistan? Right? I mean, like, those are things that can be, it's not like, if you don't agree with that, like, you're committing a sin.
For
Sorry to
sure.
interrupt you, Zach.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah.
Speaking of choosing other things, John choosing his son over us. Thoughts?
Yeah, he's gone.
Jeez,
I'll make-
unbelievable.
Not my vote.
Yeah, no, truly. Now he's choosing the better
Later.
part. I mean, don't get me wrong. But
Yeah.
The greater of
I'm still
good.
offended.
Another room, so he's probably chatting with them now.
And don't worry, TCI listeners, we will be demanding a public apology from John for abandoning us. That will happen. Don't worry.
All right, I have a last question because we've got, well, assuming we're going 2 hours, we've got 20 minutes left here. How do you guys feel like your state in life has impacted the way that you respond to chaos?
That's a great question.
That's why I write the
Much-
questions.
MK still got it.
It's fun. You write the questions and you ask, and nobody ever does anything. So
No,
Mostly
like
that.
half the time my questions don't get answered. Half the time they don't even get asked. It's just,
Thanks,
it is what
Mom.
it is. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Mom.
I'd be interested to hear from one of the priests on this.
Mhm.
I mean, it's being a public. We've, for better or for worse, we become public people, and it's amazing how many people turn to you and want to know, your thoughts on anything. Like, this is not just politics, on any sort of thing. And you're just you're always on the lookout. Like, oh, are they trying to get me to join their camp? Is it genuine curiosity? Is it they're trying to win me over to their side or whatever it is? But yeah, I mean, I keep, at the parish at least, keep things pretty close to the chest when it doesn't come to what I feel is necessary for the salvation of your soul and for your ability to worship and glorify God. Like, that's what if my answer on what my thoughts are on the use of Latin during Mass, or who I'm voting for in the Olympics, in the election, or name it, this, whatever, all these topics we've been discussing. Like, I'm just going to be like, oh, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's, that's, you kind of learn some response, like, oh, wow, interesting. And try to not, someone, I was on a pilgrimage, and there was some people there going on, some boomers going on about the beautiful songs that they love to sing in their church and how their priest sings with them. And it's like, it's exactly exactly the songs you think, right? All are
Lord
welcome
of the
in that
Dance.
nonsense. Exactly. And like, oh yeah, and the priest, he wouldn't sit in a chair up on the altar. He'd come and join us during the liturgy of the word, and he'd be among the people. And you're like, oh wow, that's interesting. Oh wow, yeah, okay. And so it's like, it's responses like that where I'm like, I'm not gonna show my cards either way. I'm just gonna kind of nod and play along. I'll listen to you. But I don't know if I'm answering your question or not. But it's like, I kind of realize, like, whether I want to or not, people take what I say as more important than maybe it should be, because I'm a priest now. Like, it's your word.
That's interesting.
Your word is, it can carry a lot of weight, and it can be used for good, or I mean, I try not to use it for, I don't think I've used it for bad, but
You're using
and
the
it's also
color for
different.
evil.
It's also, there's different settings too, like people asking you after Mass versus
I'm a
asking
Sith
you in the
Lord.
confessional. So
Yeah.
You're a Sith Lord now.
God, I mean, but don't get me wrong. If I was a Jedi, like I for sure would be Sith. Like or if I was in Star Wars, I for sure would be dark side. Like my anger, like I couldn't be a Jedi. Like there's no chance. There's no chance I could be a Jedi. Like, for Sith for sure.
We've all uh descended into laughing at something that was said in the chat, and Kevin's talking about whether he's a Sith Lord or not.
Welcome back to the podcast. This
Is
is
that
this is what the people
is that our
demand.
title
Yeah.
episode title?
Sith Lord.
Either that or
That's
a
a good episode
regenerative
title.
podcast.
Will that get you
Yeah.
deep?
Regenerative podcast.
Not in the archdiocese.
All right, who's next? I got a bedtime.
I was gonna say, I don't know, yeah, becoming a priest, they talk about like the grace of orders, and but like it's got to be real because I just like feel so much more like secure, and especially at mass, like when
Mhm.
I'm preaching, and we're going back to the prophecy of Jeremiah in his lamentations and his woe for the fall of Israel. And today's reading was especially good because we have had 3 days of these lamentations from Jeremiah, and it ends
Mhm.
with God responding to him, saying that like bad things are happening, but like I'm going to take the bad, I'm going to use it for the good, I'm going to renew you. And it
Mhm.
just goes back to the gospel promise, like all this stuff is happening in the world, but like what Kevin said, God is ultimately in control. And he's not below using like the bad in order to bring about the good.
Mhm.
And he did it for ancient Israel, and he's continuing to do it in the world. And we've seen horrible things, French Revolution, like good Lord, what a terrible time.
Mhm.
Um, but the Lord's constantly renewing. And that can sound kind of like cheap and cliche, but it is the absolute truth.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the vocation of fatherhood, especially, but being a parent in general, your response to chaos is always a little different. Uh, so obviously, I need to be a calm, steady presence in the lives of my family, and especially my children. But at the same time, I also have to protect them from what might be going on in the world. And I think there's a fine line to walk between uh like if your kids see you as being very passive and very like I don't know, like, oh, okay, like let's see what that's about or that's interesting or whatnot. Um, Kids don't know better. Kids might view that as acceptance, as opposed to just kind of trying to weather the storm or trying to, um, even like having someone with a conflicting viewpoint and having a dialogue with them. Uh, I think parents had to be very careful about like you have that conversation with the other person, but then you also have a separate conversation with your child about, okay, here's why I spoke that way. Here's what we actually believe.
Mhm.
Because you never want, like, kids don't pick up on nuance at all. You have to be very forthright with them about why you do what you do, and then also why you believe what you believe.
Mhm.
So I think
Mm.
you have to be more aggressive as a parent, and especially as a father.
If I had kids, my kids would be really good at nuance. Like they would just be really good at it. Like yours might be bad, mine would be really good at nuance. So I'm sorry, your
But
kids
in a
suck.
nuanced way.
Correct.
I mean, it's interesting. I would say, John, that's like a dad response. So it's funny that we're talking about chaos because my word of the year is order. And like, I feel like that's something that I've been really praying on is like, okay, my role in my vocation, I believe in addition to other things, is to bring and cultivate order in my home for my family. And what does that look like? And, this year for me, it's looked like a lot of things. I mean, I will tell you, like, step one was quitting my full-time job. Our house was just absolute chaos while I was working full-time. And it's interesting, like being pregnant and being postpartum, like I'm kind of both right now. There's just like total chaos happening in my body. But at the same time, like it like causes me to have to be so intentional in like asking the question of like, how do I cultivate order and how do I bring order into my family life? And I think this was said, but I think in relationship to like everything that's going on in the world, I can't control any of that, but I can contribute to what's happening like inside the four walls of my home. And so to some degree, there's like this abandonment of like, I have to kind of abandon everything else. And like at the end of the day, my priority is my priority. My priority is what's going on inside of these four walls. And like that is, like sometimes eliminating the chaos is as simple as like eliminating the chaos, like just refusing to bring it in. Um, but I think that's also more of like a mom perspective versus what John is describing, which I think is like a very like father approach to chaos out in the world is like a defensive. We have more than four walls. I knew one of you was going to say that. It's, it's
A house.
it's not literal, it's figurative. You knew what I meant. It's
I think that's a beautiful thing, though. That's exactly where you need to be. Like as a mom or as a father,
yeah.
like or as a priest, like wherever your position is in the role in the world, like your flock is your flock. That's your responsibility. Your
Mhm.
children are your children. That's your responsibility. Your
Mhm.
your wife, she probably has way more responsibility than you. But yeah, that's just the way it is.
Well, and it's, I think the difference between a priesthood where you are responsible for a flock of all different ages, but you have a lot of adults that you can. It's a different type of relationship versus being responsible for children who are very impressionable and very, yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's a different type of leadership.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess as a priest, I feel like there's so much more stability with just what I'm with being in the parish and being ordained and no longer being in this constant transition. Um, High school, college, seminary, like you're always just like, okay, next thing. And I get that there's transition from parish to parish, but it just feels so peaceful to just be a priest and
Mhm.
not have to be going through this like this active like okay always thinking to the next thing. It's like no, I'm just thinking about how can I give a good homily tomorrow at daily mass, how can I hear this confession that's right in front of me. Like I feel more present now than I ever did at any point in my life, and that has
Wow.
brought so much peace and so much joy. Even
Wow.
though like chaotic like days can be chaotic,
Yeah.
but I haven't had a chaotic day that I haven't enjoyed.
Feel free to skip
Wow.
the daily
That's
mass
amazing.
homily though, FYI. It's fine.
No,
Okay.
I like the daily mass homily. I don't like when it gets skipped.
John, are you the impression that we should be just be reading? Cullen told me this, that I should just priests should just take sermons that were written by like Augustine and Gregory the Great and just read those at daily masses. And then
I'm in
I
the
feel like I've
middle.
heard Colin say that too.
I'm in the middle ground on that one because I obviously think that they are more wise than you are. However, you know your parishioners more than they do, so it's like a little bit of both.
I personally would hate it if a priest stood up and read something at me that I could read online.
Yeah.
That would drive me nuts.
If it was applicable to something, if there was a reason that why they were preaching it, I would be okay with it.
Yeah, the homily.com thing gets old pretty quick. That was my entire upbringing, I think, for the most part. There were one or two good stories in there, but
Mine was jokes, homily jokes. Just don't tell jokes. Just don't do it. Any other comments, thoughts? Dayton life, how it affects your response to chaos.
I'm just reminded of how good we are at this. Like this is the best podcast. We're really good at this.
Oh my gosh.
And we've picked up exactly where we left off. Like we've missed nothing. Just want to applaud us. I think we're just well done, everyone. Just applaud,
We should have signed up for a slot at the National Eucharistic Congress podcast booth.
It
Did they
it was
just
more
let
than
people sign up now?
2033, we'll be there.
it was. I went to a live recording for a podcast, and it was a ballroom, and they had cameras that had like different angles. It was a very impressive setup.
Wow. Did that setup belong to the Eucharistic Congress or to the podcast that you went and watched?
To
What
the
podcast did you go watch?
Are we allowed to name other podcasts on our podcast?
Already have. Well,
Yeah,
we
well.
named the news site, I guess, not the podcast.
It's called The Crunch. It's a comedy podcast, Catholic comedy podcast.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it.
Were you also at the Pillar or no?
I also went to the Pillar live recording. Correct. That one was off site. That was in a bar. That was crazy. It was packed. It was packed.
What about Mailer Tarshall? Did you go see him?
I'm sure there was actually pictures of him around the convention center saying, "Do not let this man anywhere near."
There was a
I'm kidding.
competing.
That's not Mary Kate.
What?
I'm kidding. That
Oh
didn't
my
happen at all.
gosh, I was like, wait, first I thought you were going to say he was there walking around, and
can
I
you
was
imagine?
like,
Well,
that
now,
is really bizarre to me
there
that he
was
went.
there was a
Light Site News hosted a competing conference
correct.
where they
John
said
Henry
had-
Weston.
Yeah, so
With
Archbishop Vigano,
Yeah,
Vigano was
yeah.
there. I don't know if Strickland was there or not. It was
He
hosted
wasn't-
by James Altman.
I don't think he was there. They read a letter by Vigano because he still won't show himself anywhere. But
Oh yeah, letter. But it was
He
anyway.
shouldn't
So
show
there was
himself
a
anywhere. He
they
needs to
read
stay
a
inside.
letter from Vigano. I think I sent it to you guys. They read a letter from Vigano in which Vigano said that Mel Gibson wrote to him and told him he was doing the right
That's
thing.
right.
And
Are you serious?
like
Yeah.
talk about nuance. Meta.
It just all makes me cringe. I don't know.
This is the real conspiracy. Maybe Vigano is wearing Biden's mask.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Finally. Okay, we need another hour to talk about this.
You know what? You guys can do that.
Bonus
I'm
noodles.
going to bed.
Who
I still have
wants
to say my rosary.
Oh, that's important.
Wait, what were you going to say?
No, who wants to pray us out?
Oh, pray us out.
One of the priests go.
One of the priests.
I will pray us out.
Thank you, Tim. Father Tim. Am I allowed
name
to
of the
call you
Father.
guys not Father?
No.
Under pain.
Kevin's nodding. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Father Son.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, give you thanks for the gift of this day and for this gift of this opportunity to come together again after 3 years and to share our thoughts and to enjoy fellowship, all in your name, so that we can bring about the glory of your word and to bring our listeners to closer to your sacred heart through the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Lord, we pray for anybody who is experiencing chaos in their life, who feels directionless, who's wondering what is happening in the world and in their lives, that you, through your various works and through the intercession of the saints and through the people here, the church on earth, that they may be brought back to you, Lord, that they may be reconciled to you, so that you can renew and regenerate their life. We ask this as we pray. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning,
is
now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Way to get
got in,
regenerate.
Yes, I got regenerate in there.
And Father Tim is available for to travel for house blessings,
Yes.
minor exorcisms, whatever you need him for. He is available.
That is
To travel.
absolutely right. Oh, check check out this sick bucket I got. Look at
Dude,
this.
see?
Yeah, this is what I bring.
We can confirm that Tim is wearing pants.
That's good.
That's one.
Yeah.
All right. You guys are welcome to stay and do bonus noodles, but I'm
But
not
if you
going
leave,
to.
do we get kicked out if you leave?
No, I think it just transfers ownership to someone else. It might kick it off YouTube. I don't actually know. I don't think it
That's
does.
fine.
I'm
We'll-
just
we'll
gonna
find-
leave and we'll find
Okay.
out.
Okay,
See you,
bye.
MK. It's good to see
Bye,
you.
guys. It was good to see you
Bye,
guys too.
MK.
Bye. Oh, I'm assigning a new host. Who should I give that power
Oh,
to?
you know who you're not going to assign as host.
I'm gonna give it to Tim. He's the most responsible of the
Yeah.
group.
Nothing's
Very
changed
smart.
in 4
Very
years.
smart.
David Bowie. David Bowie.
David Bowie.
Bowie.
Oh man.
Loincloths, you know? Am I right?
So if anyone is staying to listen to the bourbon tasting portion of this, Kirkland small batch, not bad for $19.
Yeah, I actually just had it the other day.
Blade and Bow.
Blade and Bow.
Blade
Same.
Bow's good.
Same mash bill as Blanton's,
Very good.
Okay.
just cheaper, and
Has-
you can find it.
Has notes of alcohol and bourbon flavor throughout.
Good. Good.
Yeah, the notes are B flat and A sharp.
Literally
Oh.
the exact same thing.
They are actually. I'm glad you picked that up. That's good.
I didn't even think about that. I'm like, wait a minute, it's the same. Guys, I didn't even edit the picture. Like, there was one point while someone was talking where I was just doing this into the camera, just trying to create as many chins as I could.
That just reminds me of the Winchester Christmas soda from a few years ago.
Oh, did you guys ever see that?
It's on our fridge still.
Oh, is it? I
Yeah,
gotta
go
go
grab
get it.
We are
Zach,
still on YouTube.
Zach, Marty, and John all got really fat just for one Christmas. It was impressive dedication to the picture.
Where's our fat picture?
Nice.
I think John's the best. He actually looks like he's about to die.
Dude,
And then Marty's like just like a regular dude from Nebraska.
is there a high resolution picture of the six of us at John's wedding? I mean, that is my favorite picture of
It's
us.
a great picture, man. I don't think there's a good resolution of it. Whose camera was it?
Tim?
I don't know.
Maybe Pre. She took the picture, right?
Okay.
Oh.
Albert Einstein Berryhill is just the greatest.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of good. I didn't want to mess with Mary Kate too much. I felt like it would have been highly disrespectful. I just made her old, but not fat. I think everybody else I added both old, long hair, and fat too. So
You didn't really have to add the fatness to me though. So
he had jowls at that point.
that's right.
Jowls.
My weight loss came after my daughter was born, and then my weight gain came before my son was born. And I'm right back where I was. Perfect.
Perfect.
That's right.
Beautiful. Tim, where'd you go? Gossip away.
We should. Oh yeah. See, I messed it up. Well, it was a pleasure being back on with you fellas. I think we should do this again.
Just the bonus noodles part.
Just the bonus noodles.
Well, that's what we need to do, like an official
David Bowie codpiece reveal.
oh jeez. But the bonus noodles should be some sort of gimmick. Something that we're gonna do. Like not bourbon tasting, because I can't do that. Everything just tastes like alcohol to me. But something. Like Tim could teach us how to cook something.
Or make incense and rose candles.
Wow. Is
Has
that
he
an
done
Did,
advantage?
he did teach me, he taught us how to do that a little bit in Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow.
Now, what's the benefit to making your own incense versus just buying it?
Well,
Yeah.
I think he bought it, and it's the candles. He made
Oh,
candles.
I see.
that are rose and frankincense scented using like oil.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
That is correct. Yeah. Rose and frankincense essential oil.
What is this is the incense you're talking about? Or the
No, although I have those too. I have those incense sticks, and my next batch, I want to try scraping it off and like mixing it into the wax and seeing what happens. And who knows? But no, yeah, in most candles that are scented like linen, it's some type of like chemical additive to essential oil that makes it smell like that.
Okay, gotcha. The incense sticks is that like just long strips of, because frankincense is like sap basically, right? Is that what?
I don't know actually. Yeah, maybe.
Oh, you're talking about like the little
Yeah.
the ones that light at the end and they burn all the way down.
Yeah, I guess I could buy some incense, just kind of crush it up in a mortar and pestle and do it that way too. But yeah.
What is going on with your camera, by the way, Tim?
Yeah, and there's been several times
So
where
it tracks.
Oh,
It tracks.
Whoa, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I'm on my iPad, so yeah. No more of the. Can't even remember what it's. I'm trying to figure out what it used to be.
Something soft, right?
Ubisoft or something.
No.
Ubisoft's a video game company.
Oh,
Backwards.
Ubi Caritas.
Yeah, it was backwards. Yeah, that's long gone. That computer's dead. So, yeah.
This one tracks too.
Cool.
Just on the ugliest person in the room.
Oh, got him.
Got him. Dang it.
All right, boys. These are some good noodles. It's time.
Yeah,
I got a funeral tomorrow, so
Oh,
on my day off.
Your own?
Eternal rest granted to them, oh Lord.
Well, yes.
That's
and
that's
my
that's
professional
two
life.
two straight weeks you have funerals on your day off.
Yep.
What's up with
Yep.
that?
The pastor's on vacation, so
Oh, pastor's on vacation.
I'm
Hey,
actually in
mine
charge of the
too.
parish. I'm in charge of he said, yeah, hey, you're acting pastor for a week and a half.
Wow.
You're installing an altar rail in that time frame?
Dude, oh man.
There's
Don't
a
even
few
get
there's
started.
a few things that need to happen before that. There's
I had I had some people from the archdiocese come today to examine like the church building, and because we have a couple things we're looking for potentially to get in the church, and so they came to kind of see what our church is like and like if that would match up with what they have available.
Describe that a little bit more. Like,
I'm not going to.
okay, that's fair. That's
Not
fine.
right now.
there's some essential elements missing from
And
the
everyone
front of the church.
Or very distorted elements.
Hmm. Well, we have a women's book club in the next room, so I think we got to go.
All righty. It's been a pleasure.
Wait, what? You have what? That's a made up thing.
No, it's not. Mary's got
Bye.
a women's book
my
club.
wife is leading a book club over that.
What are they reading? Men's group competing with book club. This feels right.
I know, right?
It feels right.
I thought there was no competition.
But it's women. It's women, so it doesn't count.
What book are they reading?
They have read, now finished reading. It's a historical fiction novel about the Vietnam War called
Mein Kampf.
It's called The Woman, I guess. It's about a nurse in the Vietnam War.
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer Patel just read that book. She told me about it. Yeah, I know. I haven't read it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Colin Baldwin recommended a book called Triumph Forsaken, which is basically that everything that the media has told us about the Vietnam War is incorrect, and that we were right to be over there. Our execution was not good. Maybe Tim has ideas about this, but that like in terms of how we should have been there. We should have done what we did, but the execution just was subpar.
Yeah, because like one of the big things that people talk about is like the nepotism of the South Vietnamese president. He was a super Catholic guy, and he wanted to like stack the Vietnamese South Vietnamese cabinet. I don't know what they call it, but with like good Catholics. So he put his brother into a position, and like that's like their nepotism. It's like, okay, yeah, a little bit, but they're like, oh, he was super corrupt, he did all those things. And it's like, I'm not finding a lot of like good evidence about. I just see people saying that, yeah, he did nepotism and he was corrupt, but I can't really find a lot of good evidence for it. He's a super Catholic guy, assassinated in a horrible, horrible way, him and his brother.
Hmm.
And as far as the tactics go, yeah, search and destroy was a new tactic, and it just and we had an impressive kill count, like 20 to 1 enemy to our dead. We really, so my spiritual director, my first spiritual director at the seminary was Father Pat Boyle. He made it to be a colonel in the army as a chaplain, and he was a chaplain in the Vietnam War, and he kind of jokes sometimes that like, yeah, we were so effective at what we did. There's an entire generation of men that are just missing from Vietnam. Like we just killed them all. But they just kept sending them in waves, and so we didn't really anticipate that. But yeah, so we never. So most of the battles in Vietnam were just to take land, to kill people, and then we literally give it back to the NVA for them to retake it, and then we just go again. And we thought that the kill count would stop them, and it. I mean, they're communists, they're nihilists. They don't believe in the value of human life, and so yeah, so the search and destroy tactic was yeah, it just didn't work. And it was the first time we'd ever tried something like that. We've always like held land. There's always like a front line, and you take and hold land. And for some reason, we just didn't do that. I don't know why they decided to do that, um, but yeah, going on to like other like conspiracies, like I don't know. I think there might be something to like the JFK thing. Like it might be an inside job. I don't know. I'm kind of convinced of it.
Good.
But
I'm not even kidding either. We can talk about that another time, but that's one that it's like if you look even superficially at it, it's like, okay, this doesn't add up.
yeah, the magic bullets and like the footage of his head came from a totally different angle. It came from the grassy knoll. It's yeah. Anyways, so
And the idea behind this conspiracy is that because he was Catholic, they killed him.
No, no.
unfortunately,
And,
no.
and you line that up with this South Vietnamese leader and with our bombing of Nagasaki.
Don't worry,
It
Tim.
was-
I'll take care of him.
It was
That
just
one, that one is
Amazing.
that one's the one I'm like, if there's any conspiracy out there that's 100% true, it's them choosing to bomb
Oh,
Hiroshima and Nagasaki because they're Catholic. Because Truman was a
Well,
Mason.
Hiroshima as well, or was it just Nagasaki?
Both of them. It's like the two
Oh.
most Catholic cities in the country.
I didn't know about Hiroshima. Okay.
That's where Marytown was, wasn't it? Or was that Nagasaki?
Nagasaki. Yeah.
And it like survived, didn't it? Wasn't it like untouched, basically, miraculously?
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
actually untouched.
No, there's a story. I think there was a monastery in one of the cities that was just totally untouched, like in the blast zone too.
Whoa.
Worth looking into. But yeah, Marytown was in Nagasaki. It's crazy.
I thought it was in like Mundelein area.
So Dan was watching Vietnam War movies earlier, and I just thought of one that so Hamburger Hill is a great example. 1969, the Battle of A Shaw Valley Hill 957, one of the bloodiest days for the 101st Airborne in Vietnam, and it's one of those they took this hill and then they just gave it back to them. And but it's a good movie too.
What's it called?
Hamburger Hill.
Hamburger Hill.
Hamburger Hill.
Yeah, because the men got churned up like meat in a meat grinder.
Oh, like meat,
Those-
like Iwo Jima on the meat grinder.
Yeah, or like the Korean War, Pork Chop Hill, same thing.
Oh, got it. Okay.
It's hard to beat Old Mel's Vietnam classic.
Hamburger.
Yeah.
Hamburger helper.
Eating come. All
All right, boys. I'm out. Actually,
Good to
see
see
you
you.
later.
See ya.